Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
Welcome to the Dynasty Debate, which is part of the Hammercast network here on the Hammercast channel. On this special edition, quick episode, we're going to be talking about the Carson Wentz trade. So Carson Wentz, he just got traded. He got traded for basically a 2021 third-round pick and a conditional 2022 second-round pick. And that conditional second-round pick can be turned into a first-round if he plays 75% of the snaps or 70% and the Colts make the playoffs. So what we're here today to do is we're going to be talking about Carson Wentz and kind of the dynasty value of everybody on the Colts, on the offensive side. And what are we going to do? So with Carson Wentz, to be honest with all of you guys out there, Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. I think he's been in a terrible situation the last few years with an organization that's kind of a train wreck and an organization that kind of got lucky winning the Super Bowl. And when I say lucky, they earned it, but they had Nick Foles there. That caused a big rift between them. And ever since then, they failed to kind of put people around Carson. As far as his dynasty value, if you look at the quarterbacks, after the top 12, it gets really muddled in there. I would rather probably have Carson and Daniel Jones. I would definitely let him have him than Drew Lock. I would probably want him more than Teddy Bridgewater. I want him more than Jared Goff. So I think he's a fringe QB1. He's in that solid QB2. If you have him, you want to keep him. Now, if you're rebuilding or if you're on that stage of I'm in the middle, you might want to trade him because I think this might be peak value unless he plays really well. But I still think this would be a good opportunity to unleash him for probably a first-round pick. If you're in Superflex leagues, I think that's what he's worth. Maybe add something to it, see if you can get something there, maybe a lesser-known player, third-round pick, something in there. So for me, for Carson Wentz's sake, I'm holding him if I'm a contender because I think that he could definitely do something in Indianapolis. If I'm not, then I would definitely look up some options, but he's not a bad solid QB2. If he's your QB1, yeah, definitely you got some work to do on that dynasty team, but he's a solid QB2 option. After that, so we're looking at dynasty values. And for me, when I'm looking at dynasty values and we're going through kind of what they are, Jonathan Taylor's value to me in this trade doesn't change. For me, there's really nothing that really changes for me. I think he's a RB1. I have him in my top 6 for running back, in dynasty leagues. He's my rankings. From weeks 13 through 17, he was running back 1 in fantasy. He had 651 rushing yards, 8 total touchdowns. He averaged, had 103 fantasy points in that time. I don't expect him, to basically fluctuate from there. If they're going to use Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins they had in the past, I don't see that. So Taylor, this trade doesn't make any – I saw someone say that it made his value go down. I don't think that. I think they're going to rely on Taylor, and they're going to help Carson Wentz. They have the talent surrounded about him. They have a better offensive line. They're going to address that probably in the first round of this year's draft. I think Taylor's going to be that workhorse, and I don't think his value decreases. I don't really necessarily think it increases. It about stays the same. So Taylor's always been a buy for me. Now, if you're going to buy Jonathan Taylor, you're going to have to go out and get him for definitely a bigger piece. So it depends on what you think of him. Now, in the league recently, he went for Antonio Gibson and Juju and a third-round pick. That's a big price. That's a hefty price, but I don't hate it. If you think Jonathan Taylor is going to be an RB1, finish in that top 5, that is a good price to get him for. He went straight up for Tyreek Hill. Again, don't hate that. Tyreek Hill could be wide receiver, 1, 2, 3, depending on who you ask. Jonathan Taylor maybe have a little bit better half-life, shelf life there in your dynasty teams. Tyreek, who knows after next year, right? And the wide receiver position is going to be so saturated with talent. I really believe that. And the running back position is definitely going through a flux right now. Until 2023 draft class, you're going to see some running backs, and that's going to be probably your position that you want to really, really prioritize. And so Jonathan Taylor, some of that you can go out in there and grab. And it's going to cost you, more than probably in the middle of the year. You should have bought him then. But this trade really does nothing for his value. I think it stays the same. And I think they're going to rely on him more, so that actually could increase his production, and we could see him finish even higher. If we're moving down the list with their roster, Nyheim Hines, Hines has always been kind of a change of pace running back for that area. He had increased usage last year. Rivers really relied on his running backs. And so the one thing that changes is his dump offs to there. Wentz is not that guy. So when you looked at last year's team, Sanders and Boston Scott combined to catch 53 of their 88 targets last year. So he had a 61% catch rate, far below the NFL average. And when you look at that, I can't see Wentz doing that. I made the joke in the middle of the year last year that Wentz seems like he's a guy, like a pitcher that can't throw the first base, like John Lester used to be back in the day for all my baseball fans out there. I really feel like Wentz is that same guy. He doesn't target his running backs. Nyheim Hines' value is going to drastically decline. He is not someone that I'm looking to grab. And if you can get rid of him for any type of price out there, I definitely would. He's just somebody that, for me personally, I never really liked going into the year. I think that with his value, what Taylor did towards the end of the year, it really hurts his value. And he went straight up for Sony Michel recently. That is two guys I really don't want on my roster. And to be quite honest with you, I might want Sony Michel a little bit more. And that is crazy for me to say. So for me, Nyheim Hines, actually, this really hurts him just because I don't think they get him involved in the passing game the same way as they used to, because Wentz is a different thrower and he's not going to rely on those dump offs more. And they're going to rely on Taylor more. So if you can get rid of Hines, he's a huge sell for me. But what does that sell? You might have to take a hit in their value. It depends what you got him for. But I would definitely try to move him. Okay, get rid of him off of your dynasty roster. When we go to the receiving core, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about T.Y. Hilton. He's been a guy, he's been good when he's healthy, but it's hard for him to stay healthy. It took some time last year. At the end of the year, he definitely came on. I know that my lineups with him in it, especially on DFS, they hit for me towards the end. He was wide receiver 11 from week 12 to the end of the year. But again, if he comes back, all reports I saw recently where they said that they wanted to remain a Colt. If that's the case, then hey, you know what? His value might increase a little bit. Maybe he has that little Deshaun Jackson in him where Wentz can find him on deep balls, and maybe Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell come back, and he can provide that extra little bit of. They can take away that defense and help him. But again, T.Y. for me, I'm not actively trying to buy him unless the price is there. So for example, T.Y. actually went straight up for a 3rd-round pick recently. I don't know if I would do that. Maybe if I was contending. 4th-round pick, absolutely. Give me the T.Y. Hilton, especially if he stays with the Colts. I think that's good. You're going to have to definitely grab him now because I think if he stays with the Colts, we could see his value bump a little bit. But if you can get him for a 3rd or 4th, if I'm on a contending team, I would grab T.Y. Hilton. Again, I know that he's burned people in the past. I understand all of those concepts, and I understand all of you'd be weary about grabbing him. But again, right now, with where you're at with Carson Wentz, he can maybe be that in that Deshaun Jackson role, some veteran that he's going to rely on. Okay, we've seen that in the past with Carson. T.Y. could be a big buy, and he's as cheap as he can possibly be right now. Now, if he obviously goes to a different team, it is what it is at this point, right? You're basically making a calculated risk that he will come back. Jim Irsay said he wanted him back. If they can work out that contract, he's not a bad bargain right now. Okay, it's like bargain shopping. Moving on to Michael Pittman Jr., one of my guys. I think that everybody knows he's a buy low list, but I think that he still is there. I've seen some people say that his value went down. Okay, use that. Go grab him. Okay, guys like him are great to grab at a discount right now. He showed a lot of flashes last year. He's 6'4", 223. I think where his skills are going to be really shows in the red zone. Okay, he's a red zone threat. Colts love him. He's going to be a second-year breakout candidate, and he has really wide receiver 2/3 fantasy upside with Carson. I don't care what people say. I think Carson is still, when we look at it, especially with his accuracy, I think he can find people in the red zone. And just, I like Michael Pittman. I think that he came on a little slow, had a little bit of injury. He still finished, as a pretty legitimate wide receiver in the league towards the end of this year. In PPR formats, after he came back from his injury, he still had 19, 15 points games. He's going to get the targets towards the end of the year. Rivers didn't really go his way. I think Wentz has that ability to go his way. So Rivers leaving and Wentz going gives Pittman, I think, value increase. Now go grab him. So just to put things in perspective with Pittman and what we're seeing right now on the dynasty market, Superflex week, he went straight up for Jared Goff. That might be a little bit too much for me, but if you don't believe in Jared Goff, I don't hate it. I think that's actually not a bad spot. He also, again, when you're looking at it, he went for Marquise Brown in a second, and the second's a late second. I love that. Go grab Pittman because I think that he's going to be valued at a 1st rounder. Right now, go grab him for Marquise Brown in a second. Okay, Marquise Brown has been definitely a disappointment. I don't necessarily agree with that. He also went straight up for Kenyon Drake. Absolutely. Give me Michael Pittman over Kenyon Drake, especially next season and for Dynasty. So these are kind of your I'm trying to give you guys some trades, some people that you can grab for these guys. And I love Carson Wentz, with Michael Pittman. I think that he actually will increase his value. And I think people overrated Rivers last year with him. And in my last guy, in terms of guys that I really want, that I think you should buy, it's Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell's biggest problem is that he just can't stay healthy. And that is a problem. So we're not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, yeah, I'm not worried about that because, hey, each year he's been here, he's definitely had that. But he has shown flashes the last 2 seasons of actually being able to be explosive. At Ohio State, he was a great wide receiver. He can play in the slot. So now you have T.Y. Let's say maybe they bring somebody in. If they leave T.Y., they have Pittman on the outside. Paris is a perfect slot guy. And we've seen what Carson can do. And Carson can definitely hit his slot receivers. I believe in Carson's accuracy over the middle. And Paris could really benefit from that. They could really open up that offense. So he's someone that I definitely want to grab. But he's one of those guys you can get so cheap now that he could be your flex or wide receiver 4 in leagues and maybe get in that wide receiver 3 category if he can stay healthy. And it's all based on value. I love value. Value is the most important thing in the world. Grab that value now. And Paris Campbell is that value. When you're looking at what you can grab for Paris Campbell, a 3rd-round pick can get you Paris Campbell in some leagues, okay? And we're talking about PPR formats. He can get you a 3rd-round pick. Devontae Booker was traded for Paris Campbell. We're talking about guys like that, right? Okay. Emmanuel Sanders for Paris Campbell. You're essentially, his value is about a 3rd-round pick. If you feel comfortable with that, if you're looking at this rookie class, which I think is a little overrated by some, and grab Paris Campbell right now, and he's a wide receiver 4 or 3 for you on a dynasty team that provides you depth, that's the guy you grab, especially with the season increasing next year, an extra game. Depth is king, and depth is going to win you leagues. Paris Campbell for me is that guy. So go grab Paris Campbell. So as you could tell, I extremely like this trade for the Colts. You got Campbell, Pittman, even Hilton, depending on if he comes back. I love what it does for Jonathan Taylor. I don't like what it does for Nyheim Hines. And as far as tight ends goes, if you got Jack Doyle, Burton, Mo Alley Cox, I think that we have seen Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. They've definitely helped with Wentz. I think the only issue is I think Wentz those are his best targets. He's going to have a lot more different options when he plays with Indianapolis. His receiving crew is going to be a lot better than what we've seen in Philadelphia the past few years. I don't necessarily agree with some people saying go buy those 3. I think they're going to bring somebody in. I would absolutely love if they brought somebody in, a guy like Hunter Henry. Maybe Zach Ertz comes with him. There's a lot of different options for Indianapolis, so I would wait in the tight end position. I'm not buying. If you could sell some of these guys, sure. I don't know what you're selling those guys for. It depends on what kind of league you're in, especially Dynasty. But if I can buy guys ahead of time, look at those free agents. So when you're looking at free agents and we're looking at those guys that you should grab, Hunter Henry is a perfect example. I think it makes too much sense almost, right? Okay, we talk about, hey, does that make too much sense? I think Hunter Henry would be a great spot for him. And if Hunter Henry goes there, that's a guy that I definitely want. If I'm contending, especially on that, I know he's been an underachiever, but if he stays healthy with Carson Wentz in that offense, it would be great. Other guys that maybe could find a role there, again, maybe Gerald Everett. We don't know what Gerald Everett's going to come back. Maybe he goes there. So these are some guys that you can maybe grab. Jonnu Smith from Tennessee. Who knows if Tennessee's going to bring him back? So I would definitely keep my eyes open for that tight end position. You're going to have to grab him now, right? Because his value is going to increase. But a guy like Hunter Henry is pretty easy. I tried to offload Hunter Henry for a second, and people don't want him. So maybe you can go offer a late second, anticipating a move to some place like the Colts, and really grab that value. So overall, I love the trade. I think it makes sense. We're not going to do an Eagles one right now, but if I'm you, I'm selling Jalen Hurts right now at his price. Sell. But that's me. Me personally, his accuracy scares me. I don't know if he's going to be a QB1 going forward, and I'm going to try to offload him before the draft. But as far as the other guys go, Wentz, if you can buy him, if you believe in him, do it. Okay, I've talked about him, but I think that he's going to be a solid QB2 at least for the next 2 years. I love Pittman. Go grab Pittman. I love Paris Campbell. Those are my guys. And if you grab Jonathan Taylor, you grab him, but you should have grabbed him a long ago. So I appreciate you stopping in, listening to this little Dynasty update, especially for Carson Wentz. Again, if you like what you hear, hit the like button underneath, maybe subscribe. It doesn't matter to me. Comment. What do you think? And any discussion is wanted. Okay, any discussion at all. So we appreciate you checking in with the Hammercast Network.
Appreciate it.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.